Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. I'm going to start doing as many of these as I can. I'm not sure what the media feature is, but this the Deer Hunter album series, albums, whatever, and I'm going to rank them. So today I'm just going to go in chronological order. I did Act 1, it was a couple weeks ago. So Act 2, The Meaning of and All Things Regarding Ms.Leading. 2 CD copies at least. Of course, the cracked jewel cases, which seems to be the common place for me. But these are like out of print now. You can't, and if you find them, they're being sold for some of them well over $100, I think, on like eBay and Discogs and stuff like that. Act 2, I believe, came out on May 22nd, 2007. Let me just verify that. I believe it was. This, I'm going to rank them, so I won't tell that much about it, but this, after loving Act 1, yeah, May 22nd, 2007, I saw them at First Avenue's main room with 3 other bands. They were the first band in April of 2007. In fact, it'd be hard for me to tell the date on that. I've got this stuff all listed. It was April 23rd. My order's not right on there. 2007 with Say Anything, Save the Day, and Megan Dia. I think Say Anything was the headliner, but anyway, so this hadn't even come out yet. But I loved Act 1, and I think I'd actually heard the demos, and of course the Receiving and Sirens I knew Casey from. But this is quite an epic work, and just to say is where it finished at my end of year 2007 list. It finished number 2. It was right behind Caddisfly, Set Sail the Prairie, right ahead of Between the Buried and Me's Colors, and what am I spacing? Ocean Size Frames. Anyway, so it's an epic work. It's like 78 minutes, something like that. What does it say on Wikipedia? Total clock in time. 76 minutes and 50 seconds. It's almost the maximum amount you can actually fit on an actual compact disc. Here's one of the copies. I don't think this is the one that's signed. I think the other one's signed. But so yeah, this is continuing the story from Act 1. I don't know if I talked that much about the story, but the story is about this guy named Hunter. A lot of the Deer Hunter's premise, which Casey was doing with it, it's a play on words. You can see, look at that. It's a play on words, like the Deer Hunter movie. It's not really the Deer Hunter movie, it's DEAR, but it's a boy named Hunter. It's very much theatrical and story-based and conceptual. But as I've said before, with the Deer Hunter, one of the biggest strengths of the Deer Hunters, with the Act series specifically, is that it managed to tell a story, this theatrical or almost cinematic story. I see I got him to sign this one, without sounding cheesy or melodramatic, where it's like dialogue. There really isn't that much dialogue really in this. This is still the same. It really isn't. So it's more narrative and metaphorical, of course. There's a lot of, I wouldn't call them big words exactly, but words like vicarious, which means like you're living through someone else's mind or what. I mean, I was looking that up yesterday. It didn't mean exactly what I kind of always thought vicarious. It means experience in the imagination through the feelings of or actions of another person. So, but for the sake of just time and everything, just go through. I mean, here's your track list. You can see it. It's whatever it is. I think it's like 14, 15. The thing is, I didn't mention the other 15 tracks. I did not. I didn't mention. I just lost my train of thought on the last video about the story. I didn't talk about this. I think it was the story. I just lost my train of thought. But so, from as far as highlights go, out of 15 tracks. Oh, I remember now. The fact that the band played both Act 1 and Act 2 through the, what is it called now? The parlor, whatever it's called. Pillar. Pillar. Their Pillar account, which is like kind of like a Patreon, or I don't know. they did live performance, a lot of extra stuff. I signed up for a month to be able to see the live shows. They weren't live shows per se, they were like filmed performances, really. They did Act 1 and then they did Act 2. I don't know if the plans are eventually to do the rest of the acts and maybe the Color Spectrum and the other records, but it was great to see that this and Act 1 performed in full, and it kind of made me remember and appreciate how much it is. The thing I'll say about this record, though, one of the biggest things about it is it has this enormous amount of nostalgia. I don't know why, just because that time frame in 2007, 2008, 2006, 2009, I just am longing to like almost go back to that time. But even before like the last few years and everything that's happened the last few years, every time I hear this, I think of the summer of 2007. Because I listened to this a ton. And it's like, wow, I loved Act 1. Is this really better than Act 1? Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, it's a mouthful. The meaning of in All Things Regarding Ms.Leading, MS period. Of course, that's a play on word like Miss Terry in Act 1. Ms.Leading is like misleading, M-I-S-L-E-A-D-I-N-G. So it's Casey and the way he's wording a lot of the lyrics and of course a lot of the song titles and even the name of the band, it's very much play on words. In fact, you could rename the Deer Hunter the band that does plays on words. So, but I'll say that, I mean, Red Hands is sort of the most memorable track, the track I've listened to the most. I know Casey can't stand it, at least, I don't know if he cares. He thinks it's like teenage angst, that kind of thing. But from a melodic and symphonic and harmonic standpoint, it's unbelievably good. And I've always loved among other parts of it, the like sort of orchestral symphonic arrangements, that epic dun 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 dun. Of course, the chorus, "Oh my God, what have I done? Now, my darling, put your clothes back on." In fact, I know multiple times at some of the shows I've been to, I've seen them like 7 or 8 times. He's had the crowd sing it, of course, that chorus, and even maybe at times gotten on stage and sang it with him, with the band. So that was, I also listened to this album as like always like all the way going through wanting to get to Red Hands. If I didn't have enough time to listen to the whole thing, I would just skip to track number 11 to listen to Red Hands. The funny thing is, on the Ms.Leading demo, I liked Red Hands, but it was something about how, in case of a demo that sounds interesting, that when the production and it's been refined and perfected and completed and finished and mastered, it just ends up being outstanding. Another example of that would be like Ours, a song, The Worst Thing's Beautiful. The original live versions of that song were good, but once we heard the finished version that was produced and mixed so cleanly, it went from a good song to like a statement, maybe the best song the band ever did. And while Red Hands it's not my favorite song the Deer Hunter ever did, I'll confess, I probably not listened to one of their songs more often than that track. And it should have been on the radio. I mean, it's whatever it is, it's a 6-minute song, but my other musical highlights on this 15-minute epic record concept album, Act 2, Dear Ms.Leading has always been a favorite of mine, the third to last track. It's got that, kind of build and, the kind of emotion and, instrumental section that kind of sounds like Deep Purple. And it just gets to be intense. There's a ton of passion and just kind of screaming out on that song. Smiling Swine, while lyrically doesn't fit exactly, I've still always thought of like the Beatles' Day in the Life, and also the Who's Quadrophenia, the song Bellboy a little bit, because I think of like a hotel when I think of Smiling Swine, but it's not exactly about that lyrically. Then I would throw in like The Lake and the River, which I guess the digital version is 20 seconds longer than the version that was on the CD, which is, I did not know that. Oracles on the Delphi Express, The Church and the Dime. I mean, the procession through The Church and the Dime is one big suite, and then, Bittersweet 1 and 2, and then 3. Bittersweet 3, Embrace, I love. It kind of builds slowly, and you get kind of wrapped up in it. Evicted is melodic, even though it's kind of sad lyrically at times. I'll say The Evicted, I want to say The Church and the Dime, and then Where the Road Parts. There's like 4 or 5 different tracks on here where he brings in the Beach Boys vocal harmony element that he used so well in Act 1, although they're not as prominent on the songs on here. I totally remember thinking when this came out, how much I did love it, but thinking he's not doing as much of the Beach Boys vocal harmonies like he did in his Hand Matches Tongues in 1878. That being said, they still really work and add a lot when they are that ba 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 ba. Call it Beach Boys, call it barbershop. Blood of the Rose is kind of a funny, ironic ballad, but it's one of those tracks that grows on you. It's, of course, he mentions Italian. He also mentions Battesimo del Fuoco, which is the first track on, I think it's the first track or the last track on Act 1. So the callbacks and references probably happened on this record more than I realized, and then happened later on other records. Like Squeaky Wheel is a song on Act 4. He mentioned Squeaky Wheel at the beginning of Smiling Swine. Which I didn't even realize that. And also the chorus, there's a chorus or part of, because I got the lyrics pulled up here. I mean, it's like, honestly, I've listened to this album probably a couple hundred times. Well, maybe at least over 100. And I never really spent time just reading through the lyrics that much until just the other day. Actually, I think Church and the Dime, one of these songs, maybe with the Oracles, Adelphi, or the Lake and the River, has a chorus that I think left, right. There's at least a couple different instances where he sings a chorus, and it's either a callback to another song or even one of the songs from Act 1. That breathe in, breathe out, that kind of thing. And then Let Them All Fold. Of course, Let Them All Fold, and the only one that didn't fold, that was on, I want to say where the road parts, the part that the instrumental part goes dun 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 dun. You were the only one, and you were the only one that didn't fold. If I'm not mistaken, as well, there's a song called like the only one that didn't fold on the Ms.Leading demos, and I was looking at that. There it is, the Dear Ms.Leading demos. So if there's not, it's definitely mentioned. Yeah, you were the only one that didn't fold. So that part he brings in and out a lot on Casey specifically. One thing I can say is, while his brother did play drums on Act 1, and then he had like his mother, and it might have been his father who's Phil. I don't know his father's name. Maybe Phil. There's a Phil Crescenzo. This album is almost entirely Casey again, but he has the Dent brothers. His brother Nick did not play on this record apparently, but it did have Eric Serna, who was I think the Dents were on with the live band, but Eric Serna was in the live band a little longer. Eventually he ended up leaving the Deer Hunter also, but he's the older noteworthy. Okay, I'm wrong. Phil Crescenzo does play banjo on this record, so I don't know if that's his father or if it's another relative of Casey's, but again, I know that he's got weird, but less than like sort of the positive. His feelings about this record are not as high as some of the other records, especially even the Act records. I think probably because it's like, that was the thing from my past. I was, younger, so, I'm a much better, songwriter now, which I'm not going to argue anything about that. But, as much as Casey's feeling on Act 2 is what it is, myself, and I know there's a percentage of the Deer Hunter fan base, feel that this is the epic masterpiece that he's made still among the whole entire catalog. It's hard to, splitting hairs again, but I have a nostalgia for this record, and I feel like beginning to end, it works, even though after Dear Ms.Leading, the Black Sandy Beaches and Vital Vessel Vindicates are two tracks that are kind of, I wouldn't call them tacked on, but the whole momentum of Dear Ms.Leading ends. The album could have just ended like that, or had just like short little 1 or 2 minute piece like at the end of Act 1, but I don't think those two tracks hurt this record all that much, and this is a perfect record, and why it was my, on some years it easily would have been my favorite record of the year. So, of course, like I said, he does reference other tracks and parts in at least a couple of the Act records later. I mean, there's one track specifically on Act 4, as obvious, but yeah, it's a lot to take in. I guess to talk about the concept, reading through the lyrics yesterday a little more in depth, and vicarious, just the story of Act, the Deer Hunter Act story. is, up for interpretation, of course. The lyrics aren't like spelling everything out clearly. I have the graphic novels around here somewhere, the Act 1, and then I think it's like the first part of Act 2. So in a nutshell, the story can be about a young man named Hunter and his mother, who, she ends up leaving him basically at a relative young age because she couldn't afford to take care of him. I'm not sure if that's the exact premise, but anyway, she ends up going off to do her thing, across the lake and the river. And my feeling is, my perception, and I haven't read so many other reviews, but Ms.Leading is actually his mother. Now, there's weird things about like incest. You think of Back to the Future and stuff like that, but there's the songs on this album, like specifically from The Church and the Dime, which the Church and the Dime, which is like a brothel where call girls or escorts, that kind of thing, dancers, perform for men, presumably, pigs. Some of the shirt I have with the pig's face. But he ends up sort of seeing her, and he's grown up. He's not grown up, but it's like 5 or 10 years after she's left him or whatever. And he meets her, but he doesn't realize it is his mother. That's the call girl. But her role as like a dancer also is, she's kind of undercover. The lyrics in Red Hands talking about undercover mattress. I never thought about it that way. The word undercover could mean she's actually undercover as like a worker for someone else, not a cop, not a private investigator, but it might be like sort of they're trying to entrap some person who's trying to pick her up, but for the wrong reasons, that per se. Now, I don't know when this is set. It's supposed to be set maybe like 100 years ago, but it's in a fictional world too, so the laws and everything may not be set in stone. And anyway, so he meets her, and then he's won over by her the first part. Then later in the story, he sees her again, and she's with some other guys. She's flirting with other men, dancing for other men, etc. And, he has an experience with her, but then at the point that he realizes that, or that she realizes that this is not a client I should be with, this is my son. That's why she's saying, oh my God, what have I done? And put your clothes back on, per se. Then later on, he's like, I don't know if she actually tells him that you're my son, but he realizes that, she didn't love him. That whole classic story about the naive young man who sees the beautiful woman in the the tavern, the pub, wherever it is, the nightclub, and thinks that she's actually interested in him, but she's really not. But he thought she loved him, or lusted him at least, and then he's like, well, this isn't going to work out. Now I understand really what you are, so I'm writing you this letter and everything. But then she gets evicted from her place. I'm guessing what that's referring to, the evicted song. And so she's out on the street, the glass is her mattress. The glass are her sheets. That kind of say she's not living on the street basically. But even though the lyrics to like Black Sandy Beaches, or is it Vital Vessel vindicates that, she'll be better off somehow. But yeah, the story of the acts is largely about Hunter's sort of life, his involvement with his mother, and then I'm not sure where his father fits in the story, but Act 3, Act 4, Act 5 is more of his sort of experiences, although it's still related to her. But again, I'm not 100% sure that's what Casey intended the story to be, but that's been somewhat of my impression since the get-go, the first year. And then reading through the lyrics, I'm kind of seeing that a bit more, but about what the details of what transpires. I mean, if we ever got a theatrical or animated film or miniseries or whatever that could show this, or even like in a stage work, it would be interesting to sort of see that. I mean, again, I haven't spent my time analyzing, like a lot of people to death, the story and interpretations, but that's just been one of mine. I mean, it's a lot to think about, Again, the lyrics are more poetic at times, so there can be 2, 3, 4 dozen different interpretations. But that's kind of my feeling. It's the young man and meets his mother, but his mother doesn't recognize him right away, and then she's a call girl to try to basically pay her bills, but she's also undercover maybe So, you know, undercover, not with the police, but undercover with the church, I thought. Like, the church wants her to sort of infiltrate this brothel, this, you know, this group, because they're, you know, doing no good and causing problems in their town. And that's kind of why she's undercover, but there's still more to it with him and his mother, and again, so it's, I know people probably have completely different interpretations of what this is about. I'll try to go with that with some of the other records coming up, but anyway, that's a mouthful and an exhausting explanation for a pretty epic record. But every track, the procession, musically, it's just, you know, the Beatles, there's definitely some ragtime elements on this. I think it's the Oracles and the Delphi Express. Although the thing is, with the procession through the church and the dime especially, the songs sort of end, they don't end exactly where they clock in. It's like they transition to the next track before the track ends. So it's almost like they have connecting suites. It could have used like vignettes or intermezzos or something like that. But it doesn't really hurt it, I think. It's just saying the end of the Oracle and Delphi Express, the beginning of the church and the dime, you know. It's two different things, you know. I almost look at that. You could almost look at that. Those 4 tracks as just a suite of tracks. There isn't a name for it, but anyway. So anyway, the Deer Hunter fans, what's your take on Act 2? The meaning of and all things regarding Ms.Leading. Is it your favorite? Like some people, is it too long? Is it a little too long, or is it like kind of top heavy? Like the best tracks are up there, but the whole thing. I was going to mention one of the tracks in that suite talks about, you know, needing food and stuff like that. I think that's supposed to be Hunter. I always think of Pain of Salvation as a song from B, where, you know, it's like this sort of gospel, deep blues chanting thing from like the South, you know, somewhere in the South, like on the railroad, you know, kind of, because there's a song from Pain of Salvation's B that's similar to that, so... Which is interesting, it's the Deer Hunter and Pain of Salvation, there have been people that have compared them at times, which I get it to a point. Anyway, but thank you for watching. Like I said, what's your take on Act 2? I'll do, hopefully, the Act 3 next, Life and Death. Probably next week. I'm not sure, again, everything with my agenda and ability to do videos, because my mother-in-law's coming over here for a few days, but we'll see. It may not be another week before I do another video. But thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. I did forget one thing. I didn't show the vinyl for Act 2. Of course, I showed this in the Act 1 video. This is that double that came out, I want to say it was like 2010 or 2011. Has Act 1 and Act 2 on it. I think they're just standard black, isn't it? The biggest reason why I wanted to make sure I don't forget this is because, and you got the wolf, of course. It's a standard black. No, it's white, actually. Just like the artwork. You got a clear... I showed this in the last video. This is weird, though, because you look at this. This isn't the whole thing. This is just side F. So this is actually, I think, a triple. That makes more sense, because you think about a 77-minute album would be... would not be able to fit... And then another 38-minute wouldn't be able to fit on 2 records. Yeah, this is... Okay, so this is the first part, so... I don't think I even showed the other part, the Act 1 record. I showed the individual one, this double. Yeah. Yep. The Death and the Birth. Which, birth is spelled B-E-R-T-H. I didn't even realize that. So the Act 1, did I show... Maybe I didn't show that. That's a clear one, too. Yep. Alright, there's my download code. Well, I'm just going to have to, but I wanted to show the other one that I have in my hand, because I didn't even realize this. I knew I bought it, the Act 2. I don't even know if this is even in print anymore, but it reminds me of like like Genesis did that, and Rush did that with some of their double records, but this is the pressing that came out in like... This 2007. No, this came out like in 2000. I don't know, like 15 or something like that. 2016. This is a Dutch pressing, the one that I found. Blue vinyl Dutch press. So I don't have the sort of Axe box set, vinyl box set. I do have an imported. Is this really blue? What are they talking about? Doesn't look blue to me. Looks black. I'm colorblind. I'm going colorblind here. Whoever was doing it. Maybe it's the blue. No. No. Or... No, because I didn't get this that recently. I was thinking maybe what happened was someone bought the box set and then kept the blue vinyl and then swapped out the one with the box set that was just black. But the box set came out less than 2 years ago. I wish I could tell. I'd have to look on Discogs, look at the serial number and everything. But anyway, this is the Act 2 individual record with different artwork, of course, than the Act 2 artwork. So I've always liked the Act 2 artwork, though. The whole thing with it, it's like the whole thing's a dream in someone's mind. A little bit like the Receiving End of Sirens. I think they may have released it, if I ever could find it, just like Between the Heart and the Synapse. That's what I was thinking of. I would get the one with this cover art, because I really like this. The whole... It's not a brain. I always thought it was a brain. Actually, it may be like a tree. Like a tree on fire, like the blood. I don't know. There's a lot of these sort of metaphors and everything. So anyway, that's my Act 2 vinyl. Like I said, I'll be showing the vinyl in every one of these, the Deer Hunter album video series I'm doing. So one other note also, I didn't even mention, after I finished Marillion, the obvious one for me to do after that would be Kevin Gilbert. And I thought, well, I've done so many Kevin Gilbert videos recently. Am I really going to do that? But I've never ranked his catalog. So I think what I'm going to do, and I added it up, not making it so many individual, like, compartmentalized releases. I'll do the Kevin Gilbert videos and then rank them. There's a total of 9, like, sort of proper releases at once, per se, and ranking them 9 to 1, per se. So I'll end up going through... And I think for, like, Thud, it won't be the standard Thud. I'll actually have to re-listen to the entire box set of Thud. And, I don't know if it will coincide with his birthday, which would be his 55th birthday this November on the 20th, or finally the release of the Shaming of the True vinyl. Final box set, actually, it's supposed to be. But it might happen because that's next month, in November 20th. Maybe by the end of the year, or I might wait till next year, but just because I figured, well, I did Marillion, Kevin's my favorite, so. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.